over the weekend, the president and today is going back and forth with the Democratic governor and the Democratic mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina, over the issue of the upcoming Republican convention, saying we better have that place full or I'm going somewhere else. What are your thoughts on that? Because the president would say they're imposing these restrictions just because it's the Republican convention. What are your thoughts?
Well, the coronavirus and its subsidiaries, wearing a mask and social distancing, have unfortunately become a wedge issue in the campaign. And the president's encouragement in past weeks to reopen the economy has become a wedge issue. In other words, a way to rally his base, which is his MO, and create a situation where partisanship rules. I mean, we did have moments where we had lots of cooperation and stemmed this a little bit, but right now this is political, and to the degree that you can say it, it works for the president. He keeps his numbers at 45, 46%. Those aren't the kind of numbers of a wartime president. Wartime presidents, we've seen, the two Bushes go up into the 90s. But the president seems to be comfortable knowing that if he can keep his numbers 45, 46, go after Joe Biden, go after Barack Obama, go after those who will want to be more cautious about the virus, that's sufficient to rally his base.
Has it become I think it's Republican versus Democrat when it comes to being cautious about the virus until you get into that older demographic, and there the numbers change a little because they're far more susceptible to the virus. Do you think?
Yeah, that's true, and that's a net loss for the president, and one of the reasons why he's behind in national polls and the battleground states. A key to his support had been voters over 65. And since the coronavirus, we're seeing that where he's losing support is among that group.
Okay. Joe Biden, let's talk about he does have a history of stepping in it, and he seemed to step in it over the weekend on the I think his quote was, if you're not voting for me, then you're not black. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah, and I think that comes from trying to be cool and from not always thinking before he says something. Joe is a talker and a fast talker, and I think that given the forum, was an African American based conservative but African American show, that he probably thought, hey, I'm going to be cool, I'm going to be one of the guys, and this is kind of the cliche that they use in the community, African American community. It was not cool. It opened him and the party up to the charge of, oh, there you go, you're taking advantage of the African American vote. I think it'll go away. I don't think it'll do long-term damage. He got criticized, but a number of people rallied to him. But it was dumb.
Yeah. All right.
I've got a text here, John. It says, as an elected Democrat, I'm sick to my stomach. I'm not even sure Joe Biden is alive or more or less capable of running the country. How is it possible this is the Democratic candidate? How is that possible? And I'll follow up with my own question to say, and how is that candidate beating Donald Trump?
Yeah.
With all the things that are wrong with Biden, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Donald Trump is running against himself. Donald Trump is consistently in the mid-40s, and there are those who hate his guts and want to defeat him. So any Democrat with name recognition would be leading in the polls. By the same token, I would make the argument that this is a time for Joe Biden to lay low, not only in terms of safety purposes and to secure his base, because frankly, if he were out on the campaign trail, the traditional campaign trail, shaking hands and in crowds, he would be criticized even more. But this is a time not to be constantly going after the president. The president, is empowered to lead this nation for good or for worse. And having a campaign focusing on him negatively daily could backfire. And so I think in many ways Biden has been wise staying away. And that, traditionally the campaign begins in earnest, when the convention takes place and then after Labor Day. And that's probably a wise thing for him to do. Now, he has to consolidate the party. Part one is consolidating with progressives. He's on his way there. He hasn't really secured the deal 100%, but he's on his way to doing that. His big problem is with the vice presidential pick, and that is identity politics. And that's almost a can't-win situation for him. As I have written numerous times, when we would get to this point, it would be, if it's going to be Joe Biden, then it better be a fill-in-the-blank, and that's what he's getting right now from, it better be an African-American woman,
right.
It better be a progressive, and so on.
Who is the most likely, do you think?
I really don't know. I had thought that his wise choice from the beginning would be Gretchen Whitmer, but there is the governor of Michigan. I think you may see Val Demings on the ticket in Florida. Former prosecutor, former chief of police in Orlando, and for progressives, she fulfills their requirement. She was one of the impeachment leaders. But other than that, you may find the senator from Nevada, Latina, Nasto, may come to the fore. I don't see Kamala Harris or Elizabeth Warren for a bunch of reasons, but there's so much pressure on him right now.
Yeah. That is obviously, for many, many reasons, that's a very, very big choice this year, it seems. And then when it comes to polling that is being done, it is a misnomer that back when the president ran against Hillary, that the polling was wrong. It turns out the polling actually was right, and they had the polling pretty correct when it came to the popular vote. So is that what we're looking at with polling? And what do you see when you look at the Electoral College picture?
Well, that's a very good question. The president lost the popular vote by 2.4 percentage points and won the Electoral College. He could lose by as much as almost 5 percentage points and still win the Electoral College. And the way he does that is, giving up the huge losses in New York and California, Illinois, where there are a lot of voters, and then still winning several of the battleground states. He can actually give up one or two. That is not likely, to be the scenario. If the numbers that we see today hold, Biden has a good chance of winning Pennsylvania and Michigan, Wisconsin, and for that matter, picking up Arizona, which is pretty substantial. The Arizona thing in and of itself gives Biden a little bit of an edge, but we've got 6 more months to go here.
Long time. And then what makes this election any different? I read the big difference for the Democratic votes is that there's no longer this misconception that Donald Trump can't win the presidency of the United States. That's what everybody thought. Well, there's no way Trump could win. Your thoughts on that factor going into November?
Well, that certainly generates turnout among Dems. It also, could very well be a factor of Democrats closing ranks and young people coming out to vote. And so in that sense, the it can't happen here scenario happened. And why did it happen? Because you did not have a beloved Democratic candidate in 2016. This time around, if Joe Biden wins, he wins by being empathic. He wins by standing with science. He wins by hammering on global warming and the Affordable Care Act and the sorts of things that generate a bigger vote among young people, among women, and among non-whites.
Going to be interesting, and boy, just the fact that there's so little going on is unbelievably interesting. Who would have thought we'd be in this current position? It's really crazy.
It is, but, we've adjusted for the most part every step of the way with this virus. This is just the way a political campaign will be.
Yep, interesting. All right, John, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Yep, sure.
Have a great day. John Zogby from Zogby Strategies.